Hello, everybody. Whoever is watching us live, waiting, you guys were waiting for this live. And if you're not watching it live and you're watching it on a replay, you're in for an amazing treat. We're all in for an amazing treat. This is Katie Marlow, my super glamorous, how do you say, like a high top notch um, guest. I am so excited to finally have you here. I've been asking you for like months and months. So finally we were able to get this interview together. Let me just move this screen because I can see the logo like in my face.
Okay.
So how are you, Katie?
I'm doing great, Gabby. How are you?
I am amazing as well. Let's just start by talking about the World Salsa Summit. When is it going to be? Where is it? And where can people, like get to know more about it in terms of like where do they register, the whole thing. Let's just start with that, and then we're going to go onto the interview because I know that that's what people want to see right away. Let's talk
Okay.
about that.
So real quick, the dates, August 24th to 29th. The last summit, World Salsa Summit we had was last July. So I wanted to give some people time if they had won to, keep their championships for a while. So it's going to be August 24th to 29th. We've moved the event to Orlando, Florida. I'm super excited about that. We're going to be at the Rosen Plaza, which is right in the middle of International Drive. If you know anything about Orlando, I mean, it's just in the heart of things. So really, I'm excited because now the attendees will have like 24 access food, pharmacies, entertainment. I mean, we're surrounded by restaurants. And I mean, it's a real happening area, International Drive. And the hotel is very, very nice. Got a great rate negotiated for our attendees. And I don't know, we're going to see. It's going to be, I'm excited. I think it's awesome. So
Great.
yeah.
I'm showing this, the World Salsa Summit. When
Okay.
the dates, can you repeat the dates?
August 24th to 29th.
24th to 29th.
Yep. So
Perfect.
the 29th will be Monday. So generally speaking, after the competitions end, we have a social on Sunday night. It's actually a really fun social because a lot of the pros who are just done competing with themselves and their students and whatever for the weekend, they come out that night and let loose. And it's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite socials, actually. So it ends at like 2, 3 in the morning on Sunday night, sometimes later, depends. So,
Perfect. Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Now let's go back. Let's see. So we got that out of the way. And then we're going to go back to the whole thing because it is the 10-year anniversary of the World
Yes.
Salsa
Oh my
Summit,
God.
which I'm very excited about. I've only been in the summit, I think 4 times, but I know
Okay.
that there's people. I remember when you guys started it, when you started, I remember meeting you back in 2005 or 2006, I think, in
Yeah.
the ESPN
Yes.
World thing. And then I remember that you were the one who put together the whole program. You were running the whole thing. I remember that. And that's how
Yeah.
I met you back in the day. And then I remember when you started the World Salsa Summit, but I wasn't a part of it just yet. But
Yeah.
then now I'm so excited to be a part of it again. Now
I'm
from the
so
judges
excited to have you.
perspective, yes. But now let's just talk about. Tell me about you, about how you started. How do you get into competitions? Tell us about who Katie Marlow is, and in relevance to the 10-year anniversary of the World Salsa Summit, and then how you're this iconic uh, persona in the competition circuit or in the competition industry of salsa and bachata and now kizomba around the world.
Okay, so it's an interesting question. And so I ended up contemplating that. And it's really funny. It goes back to my mother. And Sunday is Mother's Day. Right? So, unfortunately, my mother passed away at a young age, but she instilled a lot of things. There were 3 girls in my family, and there were sayings that she had. And one of her sayings was, I don't care what you do, but you will do something. So we were always doing something. So from my I was in dance. I started in dance at the age of 7. Back in those days, there was no competition in dance. We did recital, right? But then the 72 Olympics happened, and I just was completely mesmerized by that. And even though I was just a little bit older, I had to do gymnastics. And I remember this because at the time I was dancing, and my teacher at that time, and you might know who this is, Mia Michaels. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, her dad was my teacher.
Wow.
So, yeah, and we were like in his teen program, right? And we were doing shows for them, like on Miami Beach and stuff. But I remember I had to do gymnastics. And I remember him saying to my mother, no, 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 don't let her do it. It's going to ruin her back. But I had to do it anyway. So I got involved in competitive gymnastics at that point. I ended up on my high school team. I ended up getting a scholarship to college for that, as did my sisters, ended up doing that. My mother, in the meantime, who was another one who always doing something, she decided she was going to be a judge. And then in 1978, I came home from college and I had injured my ankle. And they told me that to get my scholarship back, I was going to need to get surgery. And just coincidentally, Saturday Night Fever came out that year. And I was then totally mesmerized with hustle dancing. So I ended up transferring universities. My mother decided that even though I wasn't competing in gymnastics anymore, I should coach and I should judge. And so I became certified at that age as a judge. And I judged all through college. And I coached. Then I ended up, after graduating, just as a fluke, I went on an audition as a dancer. I had been competing in hustle in all the nightclubs. And just by chance, there was a professional company there, and the director of the company had seen me at the Dance Fever auditions, and he put me in his junior company. And I danced like really intensively that summer. And then I graduated, and I ended up, just like I said, a fluke, going on an audition, and I got my first professional job as a dancer on a cruise ship, and we went all over the world. So what does this have to do with now, right? So I came back. I ended up dancing professionally. I was getting jobs, doing movies, doing commercials. I mean, I think you were kind of in that same thing at that point. And later on, I ended up opening up my own production company. And I ended up, during that time, reconnecting with some of my old hustle people from back in the late 70s and early 80s. And I somehow got pulled back into that. And I met a guy, and I had been the Adage girl in all the companies that I had been working for. And I met this guy through a friend, and he's like, oh, this guy does Adagio work and he does hustle. They didn't even call it hustle cabaret back then. They just called it hustle, and you did tricks, right? So I met a guy and I brought him into my production company, and we did that. And I had a partner in California, and we had this huge production show, and the cabaret work, we were doing hustle and tango and all this theatrical work with lifts. And he ended up not wanting to do it anymore. And I needed a partner. And so I was running around frantically because I had gigs coming up for the company and I didn't have anybody to work with yet. And I ended up, this was like 1998. And I went to a hustle event up in New York City, and I had never gone to one. Hustle to me was just something you did in clubs, as was salsa, right? I was in Miami, and nobody ever did that for real on a commercial level. But I went, and I ended up meeting my partner, Billy, at that event. So just coincidentally, I had two other partners for an event. Actually, it was a new event, and it was going to be in Fort Lauderdale, and it had dance competitions in it, and it had all of that. A year later, we opened up IHSC, and if we cut to, and I was also competing at that time. Billy wanted to compete in the ballroom world, So I thought, oh, that'll be fun. I'll just do it in the summer. That's not how that works. You end up doing it kind of as a full-time thing. But there were some things that I was looking at as we were competing in the dance world. And after coming out of gymnastics, where it was very, very structured, I didn't feel that, I can't speak for everything, but at least the places I didn't feel like it was structured enough. And I didn't feel like the judges were accountable enough for the decisions. There wasn't really even a salsa community, there was no competitive salsa world at that time. So we had the IHSC event. So IHSC was International Hustle and Salsa. So there were enough people that were crossover dancers that they were coming and they were competing in salsa. And occasionally we would get some people from like LA, like I think Solomon Rivera was there and Liz Lira came one year. They may have been dancing together. But primarily there wasn't even a salsa circuit at that point. And I looked back in history because I just wanted to make sure of this. So the Puerto Rico Salsa Congress started in like 97. I remember Eli showed up in 2000. We were at the Hilton, and he showed up at the IHSC because he was interested to see what it was we were doing. It may have been 2001, actually. It was one of those years. And he came and he wanted to see the competitions. So because there wasn't really anything yet, in 2001, IDO had a salsa competition. Oliver Pineda won it with Luda, and they danced to a Gloria Estefan song. I remember that, up in Orlando. But for the most part, there was no circuit. So a few years later, I developed a system that I thought was going to be more fair for the competitors. I felt like the competitors pay a lot of money, they invest a lot of time in their training, and I felt that the community or the judges, the professional community owed them an explanation and a real evaluation of their work so that they could progress. I thought that we owed it to them. So I put together this system. It was kind of based loosely on the judging system we had used in gymnastics when I was judging, but it was geared much more for the dance. And then my partner wasn't too into it at the time because it wasn't status quo. But in 2005, Albert Torres came to us. He had seen us. Well, a couple of years earlier, he had seen us at a Congress in Miami and booked us in LA, and then we ended up as part of like his group that he was touring with. But he came to us because the Salsa 7 had formed and they wanted to do a partnership with Disney, and they needed our credibility to get this thing off the ground. At the time, I mean, this is just facts. He was not a big proponent of competition. He didn't like it. He preferred the Congress scene. He didn't really like the vibe of competition, but Disney basically said, unless you do a competition, we're not in. So he came to us, and at that point, I don't fight for a lot, but I fought at that point, and I was like, if I'm going to do this, we're going to bring in this system, and if we're not going to use the system, I'm not doing it. So basically, the judging system was introduced at the World Salsa Championships for ESPN. And I actually went back to my emails because I like keep everything. And I saw when I first sent the email with all of the rules and the structures and the regulations to Albert, and that was in August of 2005. Wow. And then, yeah, the rest is kind of history. I mean, I looked back, he had 4 divisions only, and now you look at what it's evolved to, right? There was no bachata.
Yes, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, because I do remember you being, you were always the person who was like the intellectual behind the whole thing. And people always said, all of us who were there from the beginning, I remember, like now that you're talking about Eli, I went to that Congress on 2000 in the Puerto Rico, but that wasn't by him. That was by Albert, I believe. It was the Bacardi. That was what,
Right.
22 years ago. That's crazy. And like I met you, I think the second year that you guys put together that ESPN thingy, I participated in it. It was my first time participating in the World Cup or whatever you guys called it. I don't
It was
remember.
called the
But
World Salsa Championships for ESPN. That was what they
yes.
called it. Yeah.
And it is true. There was only four divisions, and it was tough. It was so tough. And I do remember that you were the one who they always called you like the scrutineer, and then the person who knew all the numbers, and the person who had made all these rules. And you know, basically, you are also a world champion in cabaret and all kinds of stuff. So and I remember seeing you not too long ago, like even doing all this tricks and wearing a thong. And I was like, this woman is crazy. She's my idol. That's is insane. Uh,
Oh, that's funny.
so for
Thank you.
people who don't, because you know how right now everything is changed so much. And I feel like in the past 5 years, past 2 years, like everything has changed to a point where a lot of people, they just don't know who anybody is. They only know people who are right now on Instagram, right now on social media. And one of the things that I'm really focusing on with all this things that I'm doing with competition mode, uh, with Salsa Bachata University, with everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to like, you know, bring back all this stuff that is like, and then put it like in the history of what we
Right.
do, so that the new generations have something to look up to, and then not just go for the easy quick fix, because that's not getting us really anywhere. So we need to find out what's behind all this that we're enjoying at the moment, right now.
Well,
Now tell me
can I
something.
add to that? This is pretty funny.
Yes.
So, I wanted, because I knew we were going to be here, and I'm like, look, if we're talking about history, I kind of want to get my facts straight. So I ran into this article, and it just like history repeats itself, right? So I run into this article, and it was actually an interview with Albert, and somebody else did an interview. I don't know, it was an article about the salsa scene back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was current at that time, right? The big fight back then was the on one versus the on two. It was the huge fight. And then, oh my God, the Colombians, there was this thing. So now I look at what's going on with bachata, with the Dominicans versus the Sensual bachata people. And it's just, here we go again, right? It happens again and again. It's just, different people, same situation, different dance, right?
Yeah, I like, I don't even want to get there because I don't want to take the spot from you, like, but that's a huge thing for me right now. I think that it's not even comparable, because right now, like, I feel like bachata, that's another thing that I'm really working on. I really, really want to reivindicate bachata in terms of a competition, because nobody has put attention to it. They just it's just bad, and it seems
Yeah.
to me like if I say anything, it gets taken out of proportion, and it just goes like, oh, she's problematic. But no, I'm really working on this. I'm really working on giving bachata the right place in competition. Working on, like, like with rules that apply to bachata, and then just like, it's not even like on one and on two, because on one and on two, they at least had something to call themselves, like belong to someone. And then they had like kind of like syllabus and sort of rules. But in bachata, it's a crazy, it's like the wild wild west. And then we have let other people like just use it as as whatever it is, and it just like where the very commercial, very superficial, very non-important in terms of like seriousness, community, and we're
Right.
letting that happen, because we give other people with authority in competitions to just say, yeah, this is right and this is wrong. And I'm like, you don't even know anything about bachata, but let's not go there. Let's not go.
Yeah, that's what again, I mean, I've been in it so long now. It's like I see history repeating itself again
Yeah.
and again and again. So
Yes.
it's growing pains,
Yes.
right?
Now, let me go back to the World Salsa Summit. So when I remember that you were the one who actually you built a software that everybody is using right now. Like I used it in a couple of competitions before, where I was a judge. They gave it to me so that I could judge with it. And you built that one. Like
Well,
you
sort
took.
of. The intellectual property
Uh-huh,
is mine. It's my system.
uh-huh.
In 2015, I ended up I was, how do I describe this? I was instructed that I must give this information to a person that was putting together supposedly a system for us.
A software.
Yes, a software. He was taking my system, and it was part of sort of a not-for-profit thing. Somebody we knew who from the community was supposedly wanted to help this person, and the way it was sold to me was he's going to take your computer, your system, and he is going to computerize it so that your work becomes less.
Perfect.
That was how it was
But
sold to
yeah,
me.
but in essence, like all the formulas and everything were given by
That's
you.
mine.
Yes,
Yes,
that's what I
that's
meant.
true. That's true.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I can still, yeah, those formulas are mine.
Perfect.
They
So
just
yeah,
ended
because
up
this is
being
what
in
like,
another system.
yeah, like I want to land all this like so that the new generations understand who you are and why you're doing this, like why you are the one who does this, and then why I'm interviewing you, and then the whole thing. And I'm of course we need to talk about like without talking about it, but like we need to address the elephant in the room, right? I'm not gonna go into
Okay,
the
go ahead.
drama or whatever because it's not important. But let's talk about what are you going to do different this time? How is the World Salsa Summit going to be different this time? And I'm going to say this from not from a part of your event, but from like the part of how like I approach you, like because all these people that I coach, or all these people that are friends with me, that I've been in the competition for so long, that I hear from everywhere, right? And
Yeah,
I say, I see that there's a lot of we're still in diapers in terms of competition.
yeah,
And I expressed this to other promoters, other organizers, and some of them don't agree with me. They just say, no, 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 we're good. And I'm like, no, we're not good. We're not good. Like we need to do
yeah,
better. We always need to do better for the people who are supporting us and for the new generations, right? So same thing with how is the World Salsa Summit now going to be different so that we're going to be giving the new generations a better service, a better competition in the whole industry? How is this going to be different, Katie? I know this is a strong question.
okay. All right. So, I mean, again, let me go back into history. I have to do that.
Uh-huh.
Coming into the salsa community, the salsa scene, back then, the conditions in which the dancers were working under, not always here in the US, but like abroad, you know, mostly abroad, I always felt like the dancers were not given in the salsa community the proper conditions to work under. right? So in other words, a band would come in. Back then, there were tons of bands, right? So the band would come in and the band would have a rider, and the rider would say, look, we need this for our dressing room. We need this for our equipment. They came with an agent. You know, everything was lined up. But a lot of the dancers were representing themselves. And here we are at a dance congress, right? So I had come in from the ballroom world. I had been working in the West Coast swing world. I had my production company, which was corporate entertainment, you know, Fortune 500 companies. You know, the country western world, all the other circuits. And I hadn't experienced tango, so I can't speak for that. But all the other circuits I worked in, if the dancers were going to perform, they had a proper surface to work on, proper conditions. And at the time, we were working at these places, and you know, we were doing theater arts, cabaret work, very stressful on the body. And we would go to these places and the floors would be horrendous. And they would be keeping these dancers in these hotels that were just like, they were worse than dormitories. They reminded me of like some of the places I used to go when I backpacked. And so because I was the oldest one, and because maybe I had the most balls, I'm not sure what it was. I wasn't as afraid of losing the gig, right? I had my event, the IHSC, I had my production company. I mean, I was working. This was an extra thing for me. And I also hired dancers all the time. And I just felt like conditions, not all the time, but enough times, were deplorable. And so I ended up being the de facto spokesperson for all the dancers. Right? And so I was usually the one that would have to go to the organizer and say, what are you doing? These people can't work like this. Right? I mean, I could tell you stories, but that's another thing. So just in terms of production level, I feel like I want to give the dancers the best opportunity to showcase their talents, to show themselves. And in order to do that, we have to create the proper dance surface, the proper lighting, make it look, it needs to be special for them, right?
Okay.
So for me, I always felt that production level accommodation was as important for your experience as, you know, what place you take, your memories. Right. So just at the beginning, you know, just surface level, I'm upgrading the hotel, the location. In terms of just investment in the actual production itself, I'm going in that direction so that people are going to go show up and go, oh, wow, this is really special. This looks like any, you know, my goal is to ultimately make it like any other professional sports arena that you would go into, you know, in terms of the way we treat our attendees and their experience on the floor. So
perfect.
That's the first thing. Yeah, that's the first thing. The next thing is you have to understand, when we first set up the judging system back in 2005, we did get some input from some of the people that were in the industry, you know, but for the most part, when I did it, it was keep it simple, because we're getting a panel of judges who have never done this before. And so the fewer boxes that they need to fill in, the better off we're going to be. So like, if you go back, like the first time, timing was 40%. It wasn't even divided yet into timing and musicality, right? And back then there were only 4 divisions. There was on 1, there was on 2, there was cabaret, and there was team. They didn't even divide the teams back then in terms of size. It was just team, right? So, but like everything, it evolves. And one of the things that's evolved is that we now have different styles of dance. We now have solos. We now have evolved, and we know more about what we're looking for in each division. And it's not always the same thing. So we're changing some of the scoring to reflect that and give the competitors a fairer shot and more, how do I say this? Just a better assessment of what's important in that division. Is that,
yes.
You know?
Let's talk about that, because this is one thing that why I was very interested in working with you, and then, you know, yeah, because I want to be a part of the solution for all this industry, you know, like a part of something that is just going to give back to the community and the whole industry and the new generations and the whole thing. So we spoke about changing some of the criteria, modifying
Right.
it, and like you came up with these ideas, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. So tell this to the people, because this is something I tell my students, or I tell people that I want to invite, because I mean, being there, there's so many competitions. Why would they come to this competition? I see that this is the first effort that is being made in pro of the actual dancers, not only in, not, you know, like, we're just gearing towards making it better for the dancers, and then so that the at the point where they, whoever wins, is because they were really the ones who were supposed to win, because the
Yeah.
criteria is adapted to that, you know. So talk to me about
Right.
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, okay. So again, I see all the where the position I was in, I would see all the scores that came in, right? And because for whatever reason, people had different, I guess I'm going to say, opinions on what was important. So we're trying to make it more uniform as to, look, in this division, here's what we're looking for. So for instance, the cabaret division, I'm just going to use that as a rough example.
Mm.
Difficulty is the level of difficulty, right, is a more important factor in that division than, say, in the on two, right?
Mm.
It just is. We're looking for the level of difficulty with the lifts, the level, the entrances, the exits. It's not just about how well you kept time and how lovely your lines were. I mean, we want those things, of course. But
Mm.
but in the on one and on two, clever can substitute for difficulty. Do you get
Mm.
what I mean?
Yes,
Clever is
yes,
good
of course.
enough, and originality, that's good, and that works in the on one and on two, because it's not, the focus for that is not so much what you're doing off the floor, right?
Mm.
Another one, solos. We ended up just manually doing this, but the system that ended up being made from my scoring system, one of the things that happened with it is that it was not easily changed. So we had solos, right? At first, it didn't matter, but now we have solos, and why would there be a connection score in solos?
Yes,
It's
I
just not,
remember that because I
you know,
saw that. I saw in one of the competitions, I saw that criteria, and I was like, and the competition was for solos. And I asked, I'm like, what am I going to do in this? Is it connection to what?
right,
You know? So yeah, I'm so
right,
happy to
exactly. So what would
invest.
happen is, if I ended up scoring manually, I was able to just adjust my formulas and adjust the criteria for the solos. But if it was
Perfect.
going on the other system, they didn't care. They were like, "We'll just make something up," or I don't know what.
Yes.
I'm not going to say what they did.
Mhm.
I'm just telling you that with when I was scoring manually, I changed it up. I made a new form. This is the solo form. If we gave those forms out to, which is one of the beauties of manual, is that at the end of the competition, you can give the scores right to the competitors. They can see what
Yes,
every judge did. They're
of
both good.
course.
One has speed, right? One has a little more speed in its favor. The other, it's a little more immediate satisfaction for the
Mhm.
competitors.
Yes.
Pick your poison, I guess. But I'm now in the process of sort of reclaiming what I had done, and I'm working with my partner Kathy Joe, and I'm very blessed. She just retired from her career of a zillion years with Adobe as a trainer. So she's
Ah,
a real techie. And so
awesome.
I can go to her and I'm like, look, we need to do this with the system. It's going to change for each division. The criteria is now going to change. So like, because we worked with the other system for so long and she worked with it, we were able to determine ways to improve it. And so we're working on that now. And if it all, you know, and it doesn't even matter because there's always the old-fashioned way, which actually I
Yes.
judged the United States Dance Sport Championships a year or two ago for the cabaret division, and they were on paper. It's one of the
Yeah,
premier
no,
events in the
I
dance
totally
world.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
tell me about the how you split the technique into
oh
genre
yeah,
technique and technique, because that's a major thing. I see that
yeah,
that's where most of the confusion gets. People get so confused because they're like,
yep,
why didn't I win? I got this and
right,
this other person won. And I'm like, it's because the criteria was mixed up before. Now I see
yes,
that what you did is going to totally solve that problem.
yes. I've been saying it for years, and I mean, truthfully, you know, I don't know if things happen for a reason, whatever. But there's a lot of things that like I ended up discussing it with you, you know, and a few other people. I'm like, look, here's where I'm thinking of taking this, and everybody gave me their blessing. They were like, yeah, we should have done this a long time ago. So I moved forward with it. And one of those things, and you're right, technique. You know, there's general dance technique, and there is the technique of the dance that is specified for the competition. And they are two different things. And so, yes, we are dividing that up. Just like
Perfect.
before,
Yeah.
timing used to be 40%. Now it's timing and musicality, right?
Hmm.
So things evolve. And that's
Yes,
what's happening here. And yeah, I'm
that's
really
perfect.
happy about that one.
That's awesome. Now, also tell me about this thing that I got so excited about, that you're going to have social dancing as part of the criteria. Like you're gonna have heats.
Yeah,
You're gonna have
we're
people
going
like
to do it.
we used to have, and this is something that for all the new kids out there, we used to have to do before. When we were competing, we were not only competing in a showcase, like doing a choreography that we copied from somebody on YouTube because YouTube was not even a thing back then, but we also had to come in and first prove that we knew what we were doing by social dancing to a song that was randomly picked by the
Hmm.
DJ. So tell me about how you're gonna bring that back. I get so
Yeah.
excited about this. Tell me,
All
tell
right.
us.
First of all, I think that it went away. This is my opinion. I think it went away because time was running out and the
Yes.
competition was becoming so massive that it was simpler just for the sake of time and getting the entries done to go just to the showcase. I'm not sure that I ever agreed with it because, frankly, for us to do it this way, it's more work for us. But I agree with you. I think it's important that the dancers need to show that they can actually do a lead follow situation and then come out and do the showcase. I think, look, this is rooted. This competition is rooted in a social dance form that we used to do in clubs, and I still do on a lead follow
Yeah.
basis. And I think that if you end up not requiring that, what you get is a bunch of people. And you know, let's talk about like there's all these classically trained dancers, right? Theatrical dancers, and they can spit
Yeah.
choreography at you left and right. It doesn't mean they can do the dance, right? So
Absolutely. And this is one thing why I get so excited about this is because I've been in that situation. Like where like all these people that I've trained, so many people I've trained and they keep winning competitions and winning, but you guys don't understand like the behind the scenes. I'm in the studio trying to explain to them how to lead a proper crossbody lead. And
yeah,
they don't get it. And the reason why is because competitions makes them believe that if they win competitions, that's all they need. They don't need to know the
right.
social dance aspect of salsa or bachata, whatever it is that they're dancing. So now with this new requirement, you're actually pushing the culture to you. You're opening it up because you're lifting the standard and you're giving work to so many more people, like instructors, people who like are researchers, people like it's making it more broad and better quality than the way it's going right now. So right now it's going to superficial, more superficial and more superficial, and then you end up with what you're talking about, people that are classically trained. You just go to a studio, a ballet studio, you pick up some students, and then you give them a choreography, and then they're going to win because this is how it's structured right now. But I'm guilty of using that system because since I'm a trained dancer, and not, you know, like I can use that like all day long. But the thing is that in the long run, what is it that I'm doing to the industry and to the whole community? It's just like I'm killing. It's like what we're eating what we're doing as an industry is eating the golden goose eggs. You know that.
Right. So we're taking the fast way instead of the right way.
We need to take it back and then just give this to the industry, to the community, and the new generation. So I'm so excited about this aspect. So excited. Let me ask you. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. They're long, so I'm going to read them, and then I don't know if you can read them in your screen, but let me see. Okay. What are the key factors?
Let me put my glasses on, maybe.
Okay. Yes. So what are the key factors that will help the industry to improve and grow, and also to maintain longevity, like what we're talking about right now?
Okay. Again, let's go back to history, and I'm old. I've always been a believer in multi-dance. You know, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. There's things that I liked and I didn't like in some of the arenas that I've competed in. I think in the long run, the ballroom world actually got it right. You go into, you decide you want to compete there. They're not single dance competitions. You have to do, if you're doing international Latin, let's say you're doing 5 dances, right? Same with standard. I think that dance is cyclical, and right now, you know, your flavor of the month, but in a couple of years, maybe you're not. My utopia is that maybe one day we can have a social and we can play a real mix of like 4 or 5 different dances, and people will be happy and they'll know how to dance them all. You know, I don't think we're there yet. There's a lot of really young people. I mean, look, so you have bachata, right? And like, so I hear from the organizers of the different events that, you know, the sensual bachata people are fighting with the Dominican bachata people, and the music has to be different. And now we have to have 2 separate rooms for that. I don't think as a long-term business model, it's good. And I don't think for competition, I think competitions help to preserve the dance and to make them better and give people more focus to try and continue to learn. Because if you're not, like at one point, it was everything salsa, right? It was a salsa congress. Then all of a sudden, bachata back in the mid-2000s starts to come in, and all of a sudden, all the congresses were salsa bachata congress, right? Now, I'm starting to see they're all SBK, right? So now it's salsa bachata kizomba, and some people from Europe told me that a salsa event, pure salsa event, can't even sustain itself anymore. But with the competition scene, it's a way to preserve the dance and at an excellent level. And but I think that in the long run, I think people need to be proficient in more than one dance. I think if you're a professional in the industry, knowing the more you know, and the more marketable you are. You know, and I know that you and I both found that to be true too as professional dancers. The more styles we were able to do, the more we were able to get hired. Right? Don't you agree?
Of course. And like I think that I hadn't seen it that way. I mean, I hadn't heard anyone else talk about that, but like it might say utopia. I think, well, if we are okay, because there's a difference between social dancing and then performing and then competition. There are differences,
Right.
but then they're built on top of another. Like we have to build everything on top of social dancing, then on top of stage, with all the technicalities of stage, and then move on to athleticism, which is the competition. But I do agree that, and it would like just make me so happy, that we are so rich in rhythm, in music, in culture, that we should take advantage of that and then be able to work hard, because it's all about being lazy. The reason why we don't do that is because we're lazy, and we like things fast. We don't like to be we don't like to study for anything. We don't like to work for things. We want things to be fast and give me the money right now at this moment and glitter. And then I don't care if
Right.
tomorrow I don't have anything to eat. It's very, our mentality is very like that, you know? But
Yeah, it's a little cute.
imagine if we have uh, if this industry, it requires that if you're going to be an instructor, if you're going to be a dancer, if you're going to be, then you need to dance salsa, bachata, cumbia, merengue, cha-cha, I mean everything, because why not?
Right.
Like, tell me a place where that is Latin that doesn't have cumbia. I mean,
Right.
I've never been to a country that is a Latin American country that doesn't have cumbia, or something that looks like that. Because even, for instance, if you're in Brazil, that you'll see forró, but it's cumbia. It's straight up cumbia. Or, like, I'm just not going to go there, but at least we should have salsa and bachata and merengue and cha-cha. We should have, we, all the kids should know that. That should be taught in schools. Studios should be teaching a full curriculum of all this stuff, and then it should all culminate in competition. Because as you're saying, competition makes all this possible because it gives you a goal. And when
Mm-hmm.
we raise the standard in this way, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a lot of work for a lot of people, for musicians, for
Right.
instructors, for coaches, for people who make costumes, people who make lights, people who make video, people, it's going to be, but the way
Yeah.
we're going, by making it narrow and making the standard so shallow, is that we're making, you just said it, there's places where even salsa festivals are not sustainable right now.
No.
Why is that? It's because we are doing that to ourselves by being all over the place.
It's whatever happens to be hot on the radio, or one, it's cyclical, right? So look,
Yeah.
there was Lindy back in the 40s, right? The 1940s, and it went away for a while, and then there was a new group of Lindy dancers, and now they have competition. So they've preserved that art form. The Palladium,
Yes.
the Mambo went away for a while. It really did. You can thank Eddie for bringing that back, right? But it was gone. I mean, it was when I was growing up, there was no real salsa around. It was all about hustle. It was not
Mhm.
about salsa. Even my partner, I mean, he was he was headlining salsa shows, but he was doing a form of hustle, right? There was no
Uh,
cabaret in salsa at that point.
mhm.
But it was cyclical, right? It comes and it
Yes.
goes. But in order for the preservation, I think, and if you want to preserve it on a great level, I mean, there's always congresses, but again, the industry is geared toward that, and they're going to sell whatever is hot right now. It
No,
amazes
and
me
then
how
on
many
top of
people are
it,
teaching
right
kizomba now
now,
who don't know about it, right?
no, and then on top of it, like right now, what I see in festivals is that they're hiring people not based on what they know and how much they're going to give back to the community by teaching the right way, but they're just hiring people who bring students or
Right.
people who are hot at the moment, but like, it's just not,
Yeah.
like, and I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just saying that right now, the status quo, we're being very irresponsible by giving it to people who don't care about education, art, culture, or preserving anything. They really are not. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm just saying that they're ignorant, and then they
Yeah.
have these intentions that are not gonna promote anything positive. So it's up to us. So sign me up for your utopia. Sign me up. I'm
Thank you.
working very hard at that, and then I'm calling everyone who wants to join us in this utopia because it will happen. And I
Okay,
get
great.
excited
I
about
mean,
it.
and it's weird for me. I mean, I'll add to what you were saying. I think about it. And so, we'll say, oh, we have competition. And I notice there's a bunch of people that they almost wear it like a badge of honor. Oh, no, we don't do competition. Like it's beneath them. But in reality, what it is it means you're going to have to work harder. And I'm saying that because I know that now, in the past 5 or 6 years at least, where all those headliners come that they're posting up at their events every week, I see the pictures, they're all the champions. They're our champions. So that dynamic took a little while, right? And I
Yeah.
remember when it happened, because you were around at that point, where it used to be, the life of the party was getting the billing. And then the competitions started to produce better dancers. And now, I mean, it's great when we all go out and social dance, but the people that they're the poster children are the winners of these competitions, right or wrong.
Yes. Yes. And we can still do better. I think we can still do better because
Yeah,
we're making now competitors look like copycats of like carbon copies. So
yeah,
there's just a lot that we can do. There's a lot
yeah.
that can be done. And I think we're on the right path. And I do believe that there's other people with good intentions, but like we need to at least offer an alternative because if we're not going to go
Right.
against the status quo, at least offer something that is more broad. And I like your idea of utopia. I like it. I think that's the way to go.
I'm so happy that you
And hard
do.
work, of course, hard work is behind it. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you the next question. What are some of the current trends we are seeing for competition, and where will this take us moving forward?
Certain trends. I think people are starting to understand that ballet helps. Classical training will help you. I mean, this has been going on for years, but it's even more prevalent now. I wish the guys would do more than just get a girl that's really trained. I think that when like Martin is a perfect example of this, right? He had both, and he came out, and that was really good. I mean, it's
Mhm.
great to be a salsero, but if you're going to take it out on the floor in an exhibition and showcase level, you need to have certain tools of the trade underneath you. And for a long time, a lot of the guys just get a great girl and they showcase
Oh,
that girl.
it's
And
still happening because it's
I know,
patriarchy. So,
I know.
and if we continue to push that look, that stereotype or that paradigm, it's not gonna change that much. But like, yeah, I do agree, and I feel like as a judge, like I've been judging in the last couple of years because of the pandemic. I've been doing a lot of judging online, right? And
Yeah.
I get to see it more detail because it's on a video. So it gives me time to go over it and just go over. And I'm a little bit like scared about how much people are just using ballet and contemporary and hip hop
Right.
and even flamenco or ballroom moves, but they're not trained. So, and I
Yeah.
see that as a trend. Like the trend is you don't need to take ballet classes to do ballet moves, but you do need to add ballet moves to your choreography. But nobody cares if you're really trained or not. Because,
Oh, we
and I'm
care.
going to say something that
If
is
you
going to
know what
sound
you're looking at,
horrible,
you care.
but I'm going to say something that I really like. I know it's going to sound like horrid, but I know that I have the authority to say it because I know what I'm talking about. And then on top of it, I have Asperger's, so I can say what I want because it's what I'm thinking.
Go, girl.
Um, the truth is that a lot of the judges don't know, and that
Yeah.
they can't see the difference. They see a girl that has a very high kick, and they're like, "Oh, that's a trained girl," and you're like, "No, that is completely misplaced." Or they see somebody who dances identical to Adolfo Indacochea. Oh, that's very salsa technical. It is like, no, like just. Or I see people getting confused with the Afro-Cuban, and then the Afro-Cuban has a lot of moves that come from, uh, or they show it in a way that has a lot of contemporary moves, and then they justify the fact that it's Afro-Cuban with the fact that they have crooked feet, or like they do leaps and then things with like bad technique that
Yeah.
is not even Afro-Cuban technique. And the
Right.
judges, because they don't know enough, because they just don't know. Like there's a lot of
Right. They
judges
see
who are
somebody
not
do a
trained.
split and it's bad. That means you're ballet trained because you did a split.
Yes.
Forget that your
Yeah.
feet are all
That's,
stickled. Forget,
yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
So yeah.
Yeah. But you know
Oh
what?
my God.
You brought something to mind to me, and I feel like this is partially going to end up being on us, is that we need to define, like you're talking about Afro-Cuban and what is salsa, what isn't. So you have Afro-Cuban and you have salsa. We have to define is what is salsa. And I don't think, and especially because it's just been sort of haphazard because of all the congresses, they just take anything that looks entertaining, right? Nobody's ever taken the time to say, look, this is salsa. I mean, for me, there are shines, right? But truthfully, salsa is a partner dance.
Yes.
Salsa is not really a side by side dance if you're talking about salsa, not
Mhm.
shines. Salsa. Am I right or wrong?
No, 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 yeah. And definitely when you have 80% and 20% of the genre, then that's where the shines or the Afro-Cuban or whatever you want to do, uh,
Right.
can sit in. Same thing with bachata. For instance, I'm
Right.
going to tell you something. I came up with a full set of bachata style, but it's not bachata. Like and people think that's, oh, as long as you do
Right.
this move, that you're dancing bachata. And I was like, no, I took those moves from my contemporary in my ballet training, and I
Yeah.
mixed them up with bachata. But don't think that because I do this move, I'm going to count it. If you do this move over and over and you go over your 20% of other dance, I'm going to count that as bachata because it's not bachata. And I'm
Thank
telling
you.
you, because I was the one who put it together. I created this like style of bachata fusion. And then now
Hmm.
people are thinking, oh, that's a bachata move. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Right.
It's some invention. So same thing happens with Afro-Cuban. If people see Adolfo Macochea, what's his name, Fernando Sosa, mixing salsa with Afro-Cuban, then they think that's salsa. And I think that competitors can think whatever they want to think, but judges should know better.
Well,
So
we
that
really need
we
to
are the,
define it in the rules.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, and you and I
Yes.
have started to do that, right? Here's acceptable
Yes.
timing. That's actually published
Uh-huh.
in the rules. And we also, in the rules, and this is new, we're like, we need to see you do a basic. We need to know you can, because
Yes.
that was never really required in the
Yes,
rules.
exactly. Yes, a
So
hundred
yeah,
percent.
things are going to change.
Yes. So
You
that's
have to
that's
show
gonna be the thing.
proficiency.
I think the theme for the World Salsa Summit is things are going to change. Things are going to change. That's all I can say. And then I know that is close, is only five
Yeah.
months away, but I really want to invite people to come in and try it because we are working really, really hard and making this, for the future, the best
Right.
for the competitors, so that, we're setting all the groundwork for this to be like organized correctly, structured in a way that is beneficial to the competition community, not
Hmm.
just to us, not just to a group of people, but to everybody and for the future generations. So tell me about the thing that we're gonna do, where we're gonna get together all the judges and we're gonna get like trained and the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that sort of disappeared along the way. You know,
Uh,
the World Salsa Summit ended up growing like by 30 to 40% every year. And with that, because we went from the initial, of the World Salsa Championship, 4 divisions in one dance, right? We now have like 300 and something divisions. It's crazy
mhm.
in like 5 different dances.
Yes.
Large team and small team and same gender and solo. I mean, I never thought I'd see the day where there are bachata solos, but we have them, right? It's true. And so what happens is you only have a certain amount of hours in the day. And unfortunately, what started to happen, and I mean, I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I was one of 3 at the time, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to just shut up and get on with your job. So I did. But um, the judges were not having a judges meeting. It sort of disappeared into the ether because the assumption was, well, everybody knows what they're doing. They don't need to do this again. And every
Mhm.
year we had new people, and it's not so much about what credentials you've got or what titles you've won. It's whether you know how to do your job and you're going to do a thoughtful, thorough job and to have
Mhm.
some direction in which to take it. So I'm hoping that this year I'm going to get these judges together, either whether I'm bringing them in the day before or whether we do it as a Zoom meeting, but collectively we're going to talk about what is going to be required from the job
Mhm.
and to get some level of consistency with the panel,
Yes.
and it's not just
That
going to
was one
rely on
thing.
how much celebrity you have. You have to actually
Yes,
do a job.
exactly. Please. And I mean, it's a work in progress, because I mean,
Yeah.
definitely we're aiming at, whenever I talk to you, whenever I talk to Ader, people that I work with on in competitions, I always say I want to be a part of something that is going to evolve into the right kind of thing. I don't need to be corrupt. I don't need to be a sellout, because I don't need that. So I'm going to be a part, and I'm going to work very hard, but I want this to be aiming at something that is pure and, like, the most excellent in terms of quality, that is not,
Mhm.
just like a mafia, or just like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not just commercial, but it's like something that is going to really give back, and then set like set something for the future where, we are proud of
Right.
ourselves. So,
Right.
and I'm super, super happy to be in your event. And
Well,
also to finish, tell me what other judges are, because I mean, obviously, I'm already saying that I'm going to be a judge.
yes, you
Who
are.
else is going to be a judge? Yes,
Okay, so this year it's evolution and revolution, right? So
yes,
going back, I keep going back to history, right? Because you have to
yeah,
understand where we were to how we got here.
yes.
When we first started at the World Salsa Championships, there was no competitive circuit. There were no
Mhm,
champions. Typically, if I was competing in the ballroom world, the panel was consisting of people who had won these huge championships before me,
mhm,
right? And they
yes.
were being recruited onto the panel. In 2005/6, that didn't exist. And anybody who was around, like Billy and I had done our competitive thing, but it wasn't in salsa, right? We had
Uh-huh.
won the World Cabaret and we had won the World Latin Hustle. But the only one that had a salsa title Some people won at our IHSC event. They were still competing. Oliver had won the IDO event. He was still competing. He was a kid. He was like early 20s, I think, at that point, right? So really, who were we going to get on the panel? So what we ended up doing was we chose people who were traveling with us that were big names in the salsa community. And that's how they ended up. There was only one other person. Okay, Stacy Lopez was there. He had judged the Salsa Open a few times. Jamie Josephson had done American Rhythm, again, ballroom. But everybody else on that panel, they were just people that had names that were like, oh, you know, they seem like they'll be right for this. Let's recruit them. Some of them were promoters. Some of them were people that had been actually, they were friends of Albert's that he owed something to, and he dumped them on us. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, the half, you know, some of the Salsa 7 they're not even alive anymore. This happened. Okay, you need to know this happened. So when this came up and I started to contemplate, okay, how am I going to populate this panel? Well, gee, it's like 15, 20 years later. Oh my God, I have champions. I have people who have really contributed to this industry. And, you know, just sign of the times. We had been getting complaints, you know, or I had heard about, well, there's nobody really for bachata. Everything's salsa. Everything's on tune. There's just not enough variety in the judging panel. So I'm like, okay, let's fix that. So we have not one, but two head judges, right? So, I mean, Jesus Aponte, the first salsa class I took at Broadway Dance Center for On Two was from him back in like 2001, maybe 2000. I mean, this is how far we all go back. And then he competed, and he's got all these titles and credits. And then there's you, who has this incredible resume even before you came into the salsa world. So you've got both. And Alma Latina, I mean, you have been so influential for competitive salsa, bachata, besides the salsa, competitive bachata. So I was like, wow, I'm going to have a male and a female head judge representing salsa and bachata. So we went in that direction. And I've been trying to populate the judging panel. I mean, it's not going to be in total, right? But as much as I can, I'm trying to pull in competitors that have experienced the arena, because in my opinion, and having done it myself, I don't care how many live performances you do, how many congresses, I don't care if you're closing. There is nothing like the pressure of going on a competition floor and being judged.
Yeah, and it's because you're going by different criteria. And I tell you this because I've been both. Right. I know when I choreograph for a show, it's a completely different ballgame than when I have to choreograph for a competition, because these are two different things. So same thing, when I observe a show, I can enjoy it from a perspective of this is a show, but I don't want to see that same show in a competition, because I'm not gonna judge it the same way, because it's a two different thing. So I'm so happy that you're doing this. As
a performer, and I know that you've done a lot of what I've done, you're going to go perform. You've got your partner, or however you're going to do, whether it's a solo, it doesn't matter. And you're at the Congress and you're up next and you're nervous, or you're at the competition and it's the finals and you're next. What about the feeling?
Your head is blown. I don't know. I mean, maybe some people don't get nervous. I got nervous even to the last time. The last day that I competed was in 2019 at no, it was in 2020 at the summit, at the World Salsa Summit. I competed in that one right before the pandemic, and I got nervous. I always get like nerve-wracking. But and then that also gives you like a different perspective as a judge. You can see it's a totally different thing.
It's a different thing. It just is. I mean, look, I've done my share of performances. I've done my share of competition, done it all
Mhm.
pretty much all my life. It is a different energy and a different
Yes.
expectation of yourself, right?
Yes.
So,
Perfect. I'm so
yeah.
happy. Well, thank you so much. What I'm going to do, I'm going to see if uh, my team can translate this to Spanish,
Okay.
because it's gonna be already posted in English. People can check it out in my YouTube channel or in my page. And I'm gonna see if we can do this. We can translate it to Spanish so that more people can know about
Yes.
this new, renewed renovation, like what evolution and revolution of the World
Yeah.
Salsa Summit 10-year anniversary. Thank you
Thank
so, so
you.
much. Love you.
Love you
And
too.
thanks,
You're
guys.
awesome.
Send us your questions and everything. We're going to be sending you information. The WorldSalsaSummit.com.
Yes. Have a good one.
Thank you.